I had a mammogram. The doctors found something, and they told me it was a COVID node. She told me the COVID node was nothing to worry about. And then I went to see my surgeon, and he said, when you get the ultrasound, you should do a biopsy too. They didn't want to do it. I knew I had to be aggressive on this one. In 2015, I went in for my usual mammogram. I had my first diagnosis of breast cancer that day. I was surprised by my reaction to it. The nurse handed me a box of Kleenex. I took one. I think I had one tear, but I was just in shock. I thought the feelings can come later. The action has to come now. I had to get my team together in 2 weeks. I joined a breast cancer support group. I asked questions, what to expect with chemo, with radiation, with surgery, and I just got going. After going through chemo, and then I had to go through surgery, then I had radiation, and once I was done, I was putting cancer in my rearview mirror. Then in 2020, 5 years later, I had a mammogram, all routine so far, but this one, I actually forgot about it. My friend had to remind me that I had a mammogram that Saturday, and then I found out I had breast cancer again. The second diagnosis really threw me for a loop. I've heard subsequently that every patient who has a repeat breast cancer goes through post-traumatic stress disorder. And my biggest fear was having to have chemo again. It was really hard to go through, but luckily I only needed surgery and I didn't have to have chemo. Then COVID hit, and I knew I had a compromised immunity, so I knew I wanted to get the vaccine as soon as possible. Shortly after I had my vaccine, 2 weeks later, I went to have my routine mammogram. The doctors found something, and they told me it was a COVID node. She told me the COVID node was nothing to worry about. It happened with the vaccine. So we'll check it 3 months later with an ultrasound. And then I went to see my surgeon, oncologist, and he said, Jill, you have a COVID node. I said, yeah, I looked into that. I said, nothing to worry about, I was told. And he said, when you get the ultrasound, you should do a biopsy too. So I insisted on a biopsy. They didn't want to do it. I knew I had to be aggressive on this one. Everybody tried to discourage me. My doctors tried to discourage me. There was a lot of back and forth. And then finally, I got agreement that they were going to do a biopsy. I went back to work, substitute teaching, and I'm on the playground and I get the call. And as soon as she picked up the call, I knew. I said, it's bad news, isn't it? And she said, you have the same breast cancer again on the other side. I was kind of numb of, okay, Jill, you did it before. You can do it again and just get through it. If I hadn't have found the cancer through the enlarged lymph node that my body was alerting me I had cancer, I would have been dead in a year because they wouldn't have found the cancer till 1 year later in my next mammogram when HER2 positive had invaded my body. My third cancer treatment consisted of chemo, and then I had the lumpectomy, and I had, after that, the lumpectomy and reconstruction because I still had the expander in over a year. So that was what I went through. So the chemo was only 4 treatments of Kadcyla, which is really very, very minor. But after the 4 treatments of Kadcyla and the PET scan, then I knew I was cancer-free. I had used my experience with substitute teaching to let the kids carry me through. I just had to get through it, and the kids, they inspired me because I thought, if any of them get affected with cancer later in life, I want them to remember their teacher, Miss Jill. I want them to remember that you can get through this. You can do it, even if you're alone. Advocacy is so important. I didn't want to do it, but I knew I had to because education is information for prevention. So follow your hunches. If you have a hunch that some other extra little thing needs to be done to give you more clarity around your diagnosis, fight for yourself. Don't dismiss your hunches. If you're going through a medical crisis right now, and trust me, I've been through a bunch of them, I encourage you to be strong, but here's the catch. I encourage you to be weak too. Feel your feelings, and through it all, breathe. Just breathe so you can get through it. But don't be afraid to cry. Don't be afraid to be strong. Be your best self and get through it any which way you can.